You're listening to the Shift Work Podcast, Episode 7. Today, we discuss what it takes to win consistently in business and in life. There is no shortage in today's world for opportunity to win consistently. Winning doesn't need a loser. In today's episode, I go deep into where I might be failing as a parent and share a 5-step framework for creating winning transactions every day, all day. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Luke Lehman, and you're listening to the only podcast for high-growth entrepreneurs rooted in business strategy and tactics as we discover the habits of high-performance leaders and dive deep into brain science. With over 2 decades leading high-performance teams, from fighter pilot to CEO, I'm excited to join you in your entrepreneurial journey. Shift the mindset needed to build your empire, keep more money in your pocket, and enjoy every day of the journey. Welcome to Shift Work.
Hey, welcome back. This one's going to be a fun one today because we're going to discuss what it takes to be a winner in business and, more importantly, how to not lose. As we get into this, I'm going to share just a little bit with you about some of my own failures as a parent and how a child views losing or winning and thinking about making someone else have to lose in order for them to win. But as we get into the end of this, I'm going to share with you my 5-step framework for creating winning transactions. In business, as in life, I don't need to win all the time, and I certainly don't need to win at the expense of someone else having to be a loser. What I do need is I need to create a consistent approach so that I can win more often than I lose. Matter of fact, Hall of Fame baseball players only bat 300 or 400, right? If you batted 350 consistently, hit a ball 35 out of 100 times, if you only got on base 3 out of 10 times, you could really become a Hall of Famer. Now, in business, I don't want to lose 70%. I mean, that's not what I'm advocating for. But if I can win more often than I can lose, I'm going to continue to grow my business and success becomes inevitable. But as we get started in this today, I want you to win in business. And you winning doesn't have to mean me losing. It doesn't mean that in an argument with your employees that they have to lose. Your vendors or even your competitors, no one has to lose. I'm going to kind of get into it here in a second about what Stephen Covey says. I love what he talks about in the 7 Habits, how he discusses there's 6 different options about winning and losing. But entrepreneurs often go into situations with their fangs out. They have a smile on their face. They still got their fangs out. They want to win this, and oftentimes they want to win it at all cost. And that mentality is going to get us into a place where there has to be a loser. And that's just not true. There doesn't have to be a loser. You might win work, close a sale, acquire another company, hire an employee away from another competitor, but there doesn't have to be a loser. It doesn't have to happen in your home life. You don't have to always make a loser out of your spouse in order for you to be a winner. And we're going to work through some of that today as we think about how do we create win-win relationships or winning relationships, winning circumstances, winning negotiation, winning arguments, winning conflict, winning everything in our life. And these entrepreneurs that go into these situations with their fangs out, it's like a shark beginning to circle as soon as they see chum in the water. As soon as there is a deal to be had, a new client, man, I got my fangs out and I'm going to go get that thing. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be a loser. Sometimes we even get so aggressive, we begin to focus on an at all costs mindset, especially when it comes to sales and generating revenue. This at all cost mindset means that I'm willing to go the distance. I'm willing to step on someone along the way. And we don't like that. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes the person that is willing to step on those around them in order to get their own way. And you know those people. You know them. They're all around you. They're willing to do something that is questionable of their moral set, their integrity, in order to get their way. This is that winning at all cost mentality. And again, in this Covey concept, we're going to talk about a no deal. We don't have to win at all costs, especially when it comes to business, especially when it comes to sales, and especially when it comes to generating revenue. The opposite of this type of person who wants to win at all costs is the type of person who's completely at peace with losing. And I don't have to tell you that you likely won't go far in business if you are comfortable with losing. And that's not what I'm advocating for. I'm not advocating today that you have to lose or be willing to lose in any transaction, much less all of the transactions. It's not an A or B. It's about choosing A and B, letting the other team win just as much as you win, because there's a symbiotic nature in winning. I fully believe in this concept that a rising tide floats all boats. When I win, you win. When I win, when I do business, I have to get more business from my suppliers or give more business to my suppliers. It happens up and downstream. It's this congruent, symbiotic nature of everything that happens in our life and around us where everybody wins. Before we get into the business component, think about how it happens in your own personal life. When you win, when you share your wins, it encourages other people to win as well. I can't think of a time recently where I can say that I was a loser in an argument, but it's because I set those things up so that I have the ability to win. I give the opportunity for those around me to win as well, so that when I come into the negotiation position, my needs can be met as well. It happens in my marriage. It happens with my parenting. It happens with my employees. It happens with my coworkers. What happens when we begin to consider that in business there are options other than that of just a winner and a loser? Stephen Covey does a great job of describing it. I don't remember which chapter it is or which one of the habits it is, but inside his book, he talks about the 6 different components, and we'll kind of go through those and we'll think about how you might be able to apply these in your business. The first 4 are quite easy for us to be able to understand. The first is win-win. That means you get your way, I get my way. And of course, we want all transactions to be able to get into a win-win relationship. Matter of fact, when I set things up, I try to set these things up. And this is most aptly for me in vendor relationships. If we win together, if we create marketing plans, if we come up with opportunities to engage customers together, if we have a clear and compelling offer, we win together. I make a little bit, you make a little bit. We win together. The opposite of that is lose-lose relationships. And obviously, we don't want to get it. Nobody wants to get into something where we get into a lose-lose type of relationship. And that happens sometimes. We see it in our marriages. You have to lose, and I'm likely going to lose as well. And those are the conditions that we should run away from. But in all of our lives, we have to explore the power of choice and the power of responsibility. In another podcast episode, I talk about the power of your responsibility and the opportunity for you to take what is yours in all aspects of your life, to establish the responsibility for where you are at cause, for where you are the problem and the solution, and the true power in that level of responsibility, the true freedom is in your ability to hold those 2 separate sides and give equal weight to them in your own mind. So when you can begin to think about what's going to happen on the other side, to begin to hold their interest in your own mind and to give credence and clarity to what they may want out of it, you can help them avoid losing, and the same way help yourself avoid losing. Now, on a side note, a tangent, I do want to just point out that when I say that the ability to hold both opposing sides with equal merit is a masterful skill, but true freedom comes from giving no weight to either. So let's take it into a meal choice, because that's an easier thing for us to think about and to conceptualize. If I were to look at a lunch that said I'm going to have a healthy grilled chicken salad or a cheeseburger, the true freedom is when I can give clarity and credence to both of those and not any weight to one or the other. What do I mean by that? The salad obviously has good near-term effects, low caloric intake in it. It is going to be better to stimulate the majority of the organs in my biology that's going to help me live a healthier and longer life. But what about the other side? What about that big juicy cheeseburger? What's that going to do for me? It's still going to give me sustenance. It's still going to feed me. But more importantly, it may also emotionally satisfy me. It may allow me to feel fulfilled in that moment. I may be able to enjoy a little bit of the culinary experience. Now, I do like to eat. That's part of my life. I do enjoy good food. And if you ever find yourself in Charleston, South Carolina, you can join me in a visit to Hall's Chop House, which is one of my favorite. Give that thing a Google and find yourself a good quality of life there. Sidebar. When I can hold those two, the cheeseburger and the chicken salad, with equal parts and give no credence to one and say, or no weight to one and say, I could have one or I could have the other and neither matters. That's the true freedom. And I use that to just articulate a little bit of how I strive to do that in my own life. And of course, I fail at that. But then take that same concept into situations where there are higher gravity. We could take our kids out of school and put them into private school, or we could leave them in public school. We could leave them in public school, or we could homeschool. You see, we always have choice. And that's what the most important thing is to realize, is that we are always at choice. And this is most manifest in my relationship with my children. I remind them constantly that they have a choice. It also happens at home as well with my wife. Well, that's a choice. You're making the choice to do that. There is a phenomenal concept with the association of intention. In all things that you do, there is a positive intention being held in your subconscious that is protecting something in your body. It's as simple as the fight or flight mechanism, but there is something, and even in all conflict in all aspects of your life, you are protecting something. In relationships that you know are toxic and unhealthy, you are protecting something. It potentially might be your need to be involved. Maybe you are getting some need met at the subconscious level, but by having that level of understanding that in all relationships, in all conflict, in all adversity, there is a positive intention, there is a need that you are getting met that holds you in that circumstance. I'll give you an example. Most of the people that listen to this podcast are quite successful. This is not a medium performance podcast. This is about high performance. This is about leading teams. This is about growing and scaling businesses. You don't likely find this podcast very beneficial for you if you are the type of person who constantly finds consternation in your own life. If conflict is something that you do on a regular basis, this probably isn't all that good of a podcast for you. But when we find ourselves being in our own power, by accepting responsibility and by having choice, we can then avoid those lose-lose relationships. So the two, win-win and lose-lose, that's easy. The next two are lose-win. Well, okay, lose-win is pretty easy. And then win-lose, right? That means that one of us in a binary situation, one of us has to walk away the loser. That is one of the most common circumstances that we have an expectation for in all of our own life. My question for you is, are you fighting to win or are you fighting not to lose? When you think about your interactions, does someone else have to lose? And I don't just mean things where you don't have a vested interest. I mean things that matter to you. If you get into a negotiation to buy another business, does there have to be a loser? If you're in a mentoring session with an employee who is underperforming, does there have to be a loser? Do you have to make that person wrong in order for you to be right? Because that's the majority of what society has taught us, that there has to be a loser and there has to be a winner. We can go back to our days on the playground as children, chasing each other around. You lose, I win. And we make that thing happen. And I'll share with you in just a moment a story about what happened in my own life this week, about why it's ingrained in us as children, about why we have to have a win-lose or a lose-win relationship where we assign some level of success to the others. Now, the last two of the Covey model are win. Number 5 is win. It's just a win. And number 6 is win-win or no deal. This is the most important. For those of you who listen to this, the majority of you, the large preponderance of you have read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, likely multiple times. For me, I read it annually, at least skim it. It's part of my week tradition between Christmas and New Year's, where I have the opportunity to reflect, grow my mind, set the trajectories for the next year. I don't believe in New Year's traditions in the sense that we go out there and we set the new obligation for us, that we're not going to have this resolution component that we're going to go to the gym. I don't subscribe into that. But what I do subscribe to is the ability to get quiet, to reflect on what happened this year, to debrief, to think through what challenges I faced, what opportunities I overcame. But most importantly, when I want to look back, I want to find those wins. I want to celebrate those wins. And that's why this win-win or no deal concept is so important. You want to stack up the wins. And if you can stack up the wins consistently in your life, you don't ever have to lose the out. You always need to have no deal on the table. There needs to be an understanding that you will walk. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute when we get into the framework about how we set these non-negotiables. But you have to have no deal on the table. The most important of all of these components is this no deal component. If I get to a certain threshold in our negotiation or in our discussions, I will walk. Same thing with my employees. If I can't get with an employee to a win-win relationship, then we need to get to a no-deal relationship. If I can't get to that with my vendors, if I can't get to that with my partners, if I can't get that with anyone in my life, if a win-win is not on the table, then a no-deal needs to be on the table, because that means that we can avoid the losing. So that's the first thing. That's the most powerful. When I introduce this concept to you, I would ask you, how many times in your life have you accepted making someone else a loser? Or have you accepted losing yourself in lieu of having a no deal? Take the time to think back right now to where you felt like you were on the losing end of a proposition. Were you forced into that? How recently was it? Was it 3 months ago, 6 months ago? How recently were you feeling like you were forced into a situation that you were going to have to lose? What if you put no deal on the table? What if you just walked away? Could you have then taken control and responsibility for your own actions, executed your choice, realizing that no deal was on the table? You can see now that there are other options available to us, can't you? A mature negotiator, business leader, high-growth entrepreneur realizes that there is a balance between being courageous, putting the fangs out, wanting to win, and then also having high consideration for others. By not making someone else a loser, we enable winning all around us. And if you can't win outright, consider what a best alternative to a negotiated agreement may be. If you can lean the scale just slightly in your direction so that the other person doesn't have to lose, but you get to win, can you get yourself into a win-win situation, or one that you might be able to find a no deal? Think of it in your own relationships. Like I asked you a moment ago, are you fighting to win, or are you fighting not to lose? There's a big difference between the two. If you're fighting not to lose, there's a high likelihood that you can't be a winner. Now, this manifests itself the other day in my own life. Man, I am constantly reminded of this parallel between life and business, parenting and business, marriage and business, friendships and business. Your business is nothing but a reflection of you. How do you lead at home? How do you lead with your friends? It likely is reflected in your business. If you win consistently at home, if you allow people at home to win, it's going to be reflected in your business. Now, I spend a not insignificant amount of my time each day, week, and month working on my business ventures. Whatever is left at the end of each of those days, weeks, or months goes directly first to my own health and well-being, and then to my wife and children. Why do you ask? Why does it go to me first? Is that selfish? Is it selfish for me to focus on myself first? Absolutely not. And I encourage you, I demand of you, focus on you first. When you are of healthy mind, body, spirit, you show up better for everyone else around you. And I'll give you an example. Having sat in a jet for 10 years of my life, the cockpit of an A-10 is not a very comfortable place. Matter of fact, the seat sits upright very uncomfortably, and it has a small 2-inch foam padding that you sit on. So after years of compression, my back feels as though I flew a high-G aircraft. Well, guess what happens now that I'm over 40 and I have still small children at home? When they want me to get on the floor and play, if I am not of physical caliber to be able to go do that, I show up poorly. So it's not selfish of me to want to prioritize my health first. So once the business ventures are done, I then give myself the time and energy. Oftentimes it's just 5 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of quiet time, the ability to reflect on the day, but it's also physical fitness, to go out, take my dog for a walk, walk around the block, do some push-ups, jumping jacks, whatever it is, so that I can get the dopamine back up and the energy flowing through my body so that I can show up as a better human being for my family. And then to my friends. Because of this, I take great pride in the types of human beings I am raising. My life's mission is to leave a better trail of human beings. This week, as we prepared for a fun Sunday outing, I asked the children if they would like to bring a friend. Now, this specific one, we were going to go bowling. If you know anything about me, you can probably imagine that my wife is not a big fan of bowling because the concept of putting your 3 fingers into a feces trap is not her idea of a good time. The bacterial and viral infections, not even amidst COVID, is already not her good idea of a time, but I've convinced her that today it's going to be a great day. So I give the kids the opportunity to bring friends. Unfortunately, their ages, as much fun as parents are, it's better for them to bring their friends. In a bit of life's unfairness for my son, my daughter's friend said yes, she could come, but my son's friend was unable to go. And this created a situation in our life where we needed to have a loser. I didn't believe that, but this is what manifested itself in my living room. I could tell from a few underhanded comments that my daughter was caught up in a little bit of happiness and excitement, but in her language was taking the opportunity to kick her brother while he was down. And he was doing his best to make it fair, to make it even. There are multiple ways each child could have looked at this day. My son could have said, "It's disappointing that my friend can't come. I am frustrated my friend can't come." Or he could have said, "I am excited about an adventure, and because my sister will have a friend, I will get lots of undivided attention from Dad." My daughter could have said, "I'm going to have more fun than you because I have a friend coming." Or, "I'm thankful for friends who take me up on last-minute adventures." Notice the difference. Notice the parallels between the two. One is negative, one is positive. One means that the other person has to lose. Well, I don't view it as that. Obviously, I'm an enlightened individual. I seek personal development and improvement. I make myself a better person each day. I have choice and responsibility and all those things. But can you see the stark difference between the two? Now, I bet you that you can say, well, this doesn't have to have a loser. My daughter and my son both get to have their way. It's just a different type of winning. But how in the world did we get here? These children are not that old. I'm not that newly enlightened where I've decided that we don't have to have losers in our life. So where did my children learn the concept of making someone else a loser? I would argue that, unfortunately, it's ingrained into our beings, that inside our subconscious brain, that there's generation upon generation upon generation, hundreds, if not thousands of years of the development of our brain that wants to make us feel the alpha, that we need to be superior to the other person. And in doing so, it makes someone else be a loser. So it's no wonder that as adults that we bring that into our own business and lives, marital lives, family lives, parental lives, friends' lives. It's no wonder that we got here. It's no wonder that as adults, that in our own lack of maturity, that we feel like we have to make someone a loser. But how did we get here? I never recall a time in my life as a parent where I taught my child that in order for them to win, that they needed to make someone a loser. But they do it. Now, I'm actively working and teaching and coaching and parenting and mentoring to help them become better human beings. But I don't blame you as an adult if as an adult you feel like you put your fangs out and that means that someone else has to lose. But now that I've called your attention to it, can you see that there's a difference between playing to win and playing not to lose? Can you see that there's a difference in how we approach situations in our lives all throughout our lives where we have to make someone else a loser in order for us to feel like a winner? Can you now see how there's an alternative to that? That we have the ability to choose winning. that we have the ability to lift each other up, that a rising tide can float all boats, that I can seek win-win relationships. Now, to go back to my children, I didn't teach them these character traits or these language patterns, but to look in the broader view of society, we teach that there needs to be losers. A football game has a winner and a loser. Someone gets the last cookie out of the jar, leaving the rest to have none. High schools award valedictorians. And then a whole bunch of second string finishers. You might even remember who was the valedictorian of your high school. I bet it wasn't you, because that wasn't me. It's funny, in these entrepreneurial journeys, we probably weren't the ones seeking academic success, chasing down the 4.3 GPA. Matter of fact, this little blue-collar group of entrepreneurs, we're the ones that first get our hands dirty. We roll up our sleeves. We turn the trucks upside down as children. We try to figure out how the Barbies were made, because what we're looking for is we're looking for the logic behind things. It's human nature to want to win, but winning doesn't need a loser. In my life, as in business, I believe that I can win and you can win. And when we both win, the intensity of the celebration is that much deeper. Can you imagine a Super Bowl where both teams get to celebrate? The Patriots, the Chargers, come on now. I'm a Phillip Rivers fan. The Chargers line up there, the Patriots line up there, and we have two winners. At the end of the day, the score is tied. Or maybe not the score is tied. Maybe it's 37-34, but we're both winners. Do we have to have a loser? Because I can describe for you a dozen, if not 100 circumstances in our own lives in business where we don't have to have a loser. My wife doesn't like Thai food, but she doesn't have to lose when I want to have Thai food. There's got to be a way that she can get her needs met without her having to lose. Business is absolutely easy for us to pick winners and winners and winners and winners and winners. And I gave you a relationship in a vendor relationship where we come up together with a way that we're going to win together. But let's take the hard one. Let's take competition. I love competition. Healthy competition is one of the cornerstones of business. It's what happens in the macroeconomic structure to push price to an equilibrium. The reason why I love equilibrium pricing is because I get to beat that equilibrium pricing by the value proposition. By the offering that I'm going to make to another customer, I know that I get to slay my competitors. And I do it everywhere. I do it time and time again. But why? Why can I do that consistently? Why can I teach you how to do that? Is because I don't believe that they have to lose. It just means that we might be playing a different game. Because if I'm growing my business at 60, 70, 100%, 200% year on year, they might not even desire that. They may desire to work 50% of a work week. 20% of a work week may be their idea of a good time. 5 hours, 10 hours, that may be their opportunity to win. But I don't have to make them a loser in order for me to win. This goes back to that concept of a blue ocean strategy. I do everything in my power to make my products not look like the products of my competitors. I'm going to give you just a quick aside because I think this is a great opportunity to illustrate it. As I was putting a home security system in at my new home, I did what everybody did. I created an idea, a scope of work. I want this number of cameras, this number of door locks, whatever it is. And I called 3 separate vendors. Now, what am I doing when I call 3 separate vendors? I'm trying to get them to compete on price. I want to get something and I want to force them into a commodity market. I want to make one of them have to lose. You know what the unfortunate part about them being forced into that was? They didn't get to show me their value proposition about what they were going to do differently because I forced them into a commodity market. But did they need to stay there? I told them what I wanted. I told them the budget. I gave them all the parts and pieces. Now, at some end state, there was only going to be a finite number of dollars that exchange hands because I didn't need 3 systems. I only needed 1. But that doesn't mean that one had to be the loser. That just meant that one was going to do the installation here, but the other 2 didn't need to be losers. Now, what do I do with that in my own life? Now, this is the competitive advantage. I don't go into a place with the expectation of losing, and it's my job to differentiate from that of the loser. I'm going to show you why this is a winning value proposition. I'm going to show you why you absolutely need to choose me to do business with. And the reason why you need to choose me, I'm going to outline the key benefits and the advantages of why you need to do that. And here's how this is ridiculous, and it makes me chuckle. It makes me want to just go buy these businesses or start a home security company. How do you think those 3 vendors gave me my pricing? Think through it. You know how they did it. They come over to my house, they take some measurements, and at the end of it, what did they do? They sent me an email. And that email sat in my inbox until I was ready to consume it. All 3 of them, single, likely out of QuickBooks, single, 8.5 by 11, with almost very little description. Here's the line items, here's the cost, here's the total number. And that is where they allow themselves to be in the commodity market. They allow themselves to compete solely based on price, because as a consumer, I was unable to ascertain the difference between those 3 different quotes. Now, what's the alternative? What would a winning opportunity look like? Well, first of all, show up to my doorstep. You already came over here once. You know where I lived. Ask for the time to present your offer. I bet you if you would have simply showed up to give me that offer, to answer my questions, you would have closed that transaction. People don't do it. People don't finish the job. They don't get over the finish line. They wait for you to respond. And that's the worst case. But even if you weren't willing to show up on my doorstep to answer my questions and to ask me, can I earn your business? Even if you were the highest price provider, what else could you have done? Well, instead of just giving me a single 8.5 by 11, why don't you give me a full proposal? It's easy. There's dozens of websites now. You can download a single PDF. So instead of getting straight to the price, why didn't you spend 4 pages outlining how you were the absolute best answer? Redefine the problem. Tell me the frustrations and the risks associated with what my current problem set is. Give me your features and benefits. Give me a risk reversal. Make me an offer and then show me the price. Because if all you ever do is show me the price, I can't differentiate. Now, I know that's a bit of a tangent, but I think it's important for us to be able to understand how do we create winning relationships where we can have a win-win relationship. Now, this is a little bit rudimentary, but we got to put this into some context so that we can have an understanding of how we create a framework that creates winning transitions. And these are the 5 steps that I go through. I don't want to lose ever, but that doesn't mean that you need to lose in order for me to win. I don't know the last time that I created a loser. Now, of course, there were transactions that came my way that didn't go someone else's way, but that doesn't mean that they were a loser, because all that did was create space and freedom for them to pursue other opportunities. So in fact, quite the opposite of you needing to lose. By setting conditions in which we can both win, we're able to string together a group of allies who find favor and fortune in all of our transactions. I create an army around me. It's a group of people who are like-minded, individuals who celebrate my success and I champion theirs. And because I create this win-win proposition, it's easy for me to surround myself by winners. They bring me deals, they bring me joy, they bring me excitement. Have you ever fully considered just how little demand there is for a loser in business? Now, I'm not talking about litigation or a need to get even or retribution. In fact, there's a high likelihood in those circumstances that there are only losers. If you find the need to bring in an attorney to solve your problem, you're both going to, well, somebody's going to win. The attorney's going to win, right? But the 2 people that are arbitrating, the 2 people that are there to make the decisions and the challenges that they created for themselves are both going to lose. And that's how we get into that lose-lose situation. But in any normal business operation, there just isn't high demand for a loser. And there is a benefit to creating win-win situations, is there not? Needless to say, if we create situations in our lives where we allow winning, or at least a no deal, we create the opportunities in our lives that we can have constant growth, constant improvement, constant opportunities for us to win, and then to give ourselves the opportunities to celebrate. In my life, you'll see markers all around celebrations. Of course, we celebrate the holidays, the birthdays, but we celebrate everything. We celebrate report cards for the kids. In my own life, when I set my goals and objectives for the year, I generally write 10 to 12 focus areas that I want to put. Notice the vernacular there. Notice that I say objectives. Those are outcome-based things, not necessarily just goals. I am on a predestined path to have those fulfilled, but I allow myself to win. When I have milestones that are met, I allow myself to win. I allow myself to celebrate. I take my family out to Hall's Chop House. If you want to come to South Carolina, bring it on. But I do that on a consistent basis. And how do I do that? Number one, mutual respect. In all my relationships, I start by treating the other party as an equal winner and a part of a long-term relationship that I want to keep intact. I start with mutual respect. I don't think there needs to be a loser. And because I want you to win, I'm going to show you that amount of respect. Number two, understand the desired outcomes. Before we begin any negotiation, we need to first find how we would define success. To go back to Stephen Covey, start with the end in mind. That's number two of his principles of 7 habits of highly effective people. Number two, start with the end in mind. I say understand the desired outcomes. Before we begin any negotiation, we need to first find how we would define success. Without clarity, without having an end state in mind, we are running through life like a ship with no captain. It has plenty of energy. It just has no direction. Number three, identify the non-negotiables. We all have places that we just aren't willing to go in any circumstance. By getting the non-negotiable out of the way, we are then able to figure out where the boundaries are. I say this literally at the beginning of any conversation. Do you have any non-negotiables? Is there any hard lines for you? I say it in meetings. Do you have a finite endpoint that you need to stop at? Because I'm not trying to create any losers. I don't want you to be late to your next meeting. But in negotiation and in conflict management and in situations that there may be a loser, I identify the non-negotiables. I absolutely will not go to Thai. Well, just because I want Thai and you don't, doesn't mean that I have to lose. Can you think about that right now? If I want Thai food and my wife doesn't and has a non-negotiable, does that mean I have to lose? Is there anything that we could consider that would make me a winner? What if I go alone? What if I go tomorrow night? What if we go to an Asian fusion restaurant where she may be able to get something else and I can get my Thai food? What if we go to the grocery store and I get microwavable Thai food? There's 100 ways that I can create a situation where we both win and there are no losers. So number 3 was identifying non-negotiables. Number 4, reach an amicable conclusion. Get to yes. Find a place where both parties feel like they can live with the outcome. If you say yes and they say yes, it's over. The conversation is solved. We both win. We have a win-win outcome. But let there be an amicable conclusion. Don't dig your heels in on things that don't matter to you. And then number 5 is the true secret. This is where the magic is made. Now you negotiate the terms. This is the part that everyone forgets. How long does it take for us to ratify this? When are the deliverables? Let's go back to my Thai food restaurant. I don't need to lose for you to win. I could go tomorrow. What if my wife said, yes, she says, yes, Thai food sounds great. And I go, yeah, great. Thai food sounds great. And she goes, tomorrow, next week, you can go by yourself. Dang, because my wife knew how to negotiate. She knew how to bring the terms in after we had gotten to yes. Now, how do we do that in business? How do we do that in our own lives so that we don't have to make losers? Go back to my example about my children. Did my daughter need to make my son a loser because she got a friend? Of course not. There's 100 ways that we could look at that show that she can win and he can win and I can win and we all can win and we can enjoy it. So by establishing this framework and entering with clarity, we were able to create transactions that are almost always winners. So here's the 5 steps, and we'll link them up in the show notes. Number 1, mutual respect. Number 2, understand desired outcomes. Number 3, identify non-negotiables. Number 4, reach an amicable conclusion. And number 5, the secret, negotiate terms. Folks, I want you all to win. I want you to win big. There is no limitations on the amount of abundance that you can receive in your life. There is no limitations on the things that I can receive that make you have to lose. As a matter of fact, simply by listening to this podcast today, we can both be winners. We can find situations where I can make more money, have more abundance, more celebrations, more freedom, more excitement, more peace, more prosperity, and you can have the same. So I encourage you to identify the places in your life where you have made others feel as though they need to be a loser, or you've created situations where there needs to be a transaction that has a loser in place, and eradicate those things. Turn those things around to where you have win-win propositions. Create those relationships in your life where rising tides can float all boats, and surround yourself by people who celebrate those wins with you. And as always, keep winning, my friends. Thanks for listening. If you found value in today's episode, please take the time to leave a review so that we can build our community of high-growth entrepreneurs. If you'd like to stay connected with me, go to www.lukelehman.com to find a link to your social media channel of choice.